significant. I think that there is the green bit of the Green-Red Alliance, what we saw there.
The climate movement?
No, not just the climate movement. There's the leftist movement.
Okay.
The ones who, again, they get their politics off the shelf. You can predict 100% certainty what the sort of things they'll say before they say them. And on the question of the Middle East, they will think it's all about the Palestinians, two states or whatever. Those people are a fringe in politics in every country who always have a risk, as with the Democrats in America, of becoming slightly more mainstream. That's the first part of the anti-Israel movement in the West. The second, and the much more worrying to my mind, and the much more difficult to talk about for most people, is the Muslim anti-Semitism, which is very, very hard for Jews or non-Jews to identify. But it's, without question, the main driver now. The marches, the videos we just saw weren't very representative of them, but the marches in London are mainly Muslim. They are Pakistani Muslims and others who arrived in Britain in recent generations and brought the anti-Semitism of their homeland with them.
Are they still really mainly Muslim marches, or are you not seeing a lot of white Britons as well?
You're seeing a lot, seeing a lot. But the driver is undoubtedly Muslim communities in the UK, Muslim communities in Paris who want to protest there. It's different in different countries, but that's the main driver. And a very close enemy of mine, Mehdi Hassan, some years ago said in an article something true. And that's why I remember it.
Yes, I remember. He received a lot of pushback for this.
Yeah, of course he would, because his audience expect lies. But he said in this article about 10 years ago, he said the Muslim community in Britain, he said anti-Semitism is our dirty little secret. He said it's our dirty little secret. He said every Muslim reading this will know what I mean. It's always there at the dinner table. It's always there around the table. Now,
which was an astonishing moment of honesty to credit.
Yes.
Mr.
No, I mean,
Hassan.
as I say, I credit him for telling the truth for once. But he's in this revelation he made, he confirmed something I've said for years. I mean, for instance, if you import a lot of people from, I don't know, a philo-Semitic background, maybe you'd have a more philo-Semitic society. Not that it's a term I particularly like, but if you import a lot of people from an anti-Semitic background, you'll have a lot more anti-Semites in your society. Germany, after the war, decided to import a lot of people from Turkey and the Middle East and North Africa. And Germany, as a result, which wasn't a country that needed a lot more anti-Semites, has got a lot more anti-Semites. And they are trying to work out what to do about that. And it's not easy because these people are citizens. In Britain, we have Hamas leaders who live freely in Britain, who've been given British citizenship by the British state, and they plot evil and violence against the people of this country. Now, the British government, Labour and Conservative, seems to not know what to do about that, and that's Hamas leaders. So imagine how much more worrying it is for the country when they see hundreds of thousands of relatively recent migrants of Muslim background who, and this is the other thing, they ask, why are they so feverish? Why are they so feverish about Israel? I did a very unpleasant sum some years ago, a few years into the Syrian civil war, which was, if you add up all of the people killed on both sides of every conflict involving Israel from 1948, including the War of Independence, right up to the present, and you include the highest estimated death tolls on not just the side of Israel, but on the side of Egypt, Jordan, everyone else, you get an average 6 months killing in Syria over the last decade.
Astonishing.
Right. So why would it be that if you are a Pakistani Muslim in London, you didn't turn out one Saturday for the killing of your co-religionists by Bashar al-Assad? You didn't spend one weekend outside the Chinese embassy for the putting into concentration camps of 1 million Muslims in China. You didn't turn out in massacre after massacre, in country after country. But this country, Israel, does one thing, never mind a war, one thing, and the streets erupt. Why? Muslim anti-Semitism is one of the variants of anti-Semitism and is the most prevalent and pushing in our time. And it terrifies the leaders of Western democracies because they have brought this into the West and they don't know what to do about it.
You know, those anti-Semitism marches that are occurring all over the world, that happen in the United States, that happen in Canada, that happen in Paris, that happen in England, in London, in Australia, in all sorts of Western democracies. We have them happening all the time. And who is there? You've got your liberals and your progressives and your leftists. They're out there in full force because they're married all together, right? And then alongside with that, who do you have? The Muslim drive, right? All the Muslims that are coming out, and these are the anti-Semitic Muslims, and there are a lot of them. There are a lot of them that are not anti-Semitic, but there are truly those that are out there. Just like, for example, you've got the blacks that come out for Black Lives Matter. There are a lot of blacks that are absolutely against everything that Black Lives Matter stands for. They're not out there marching when Black Lives Matter comes out in a parade. No, they're the ones that are basically counter-protesting. But this is true. When you see, just like we talk about black on black crime, where's the outrage? You never hear the outrage of black on black crime. Oh no, oh, that's never going to happen because they don't want to talk about it. They want to sweep that under the rug. Absolutely. If a black officer, if a black policeman, if he happens to shoot a person of color, a black man, a black child, it's swept under the rug. They don't even talk about it. You know for a fact, folks, when they don't divulge the identity of a shooter anywhere that happens, especially in the United States of America, I'm sure other Western countries too, if they withhold the identity of the shooter, you know it's not white. You can write it down, take it to the freaking bank. Because if it's white, it'll be out there immediately. KKK, anti-Semite, conservative, Trump's, the narrative will just start. The spin will begin. And here's another thing. Just like nobody talks about black on black crime, nobody wants to talk about the abortion rate of blacks higher than black births in some cities. No one wants to talk about the Muslim on Muslim crime. More Muslims have been killed, from extremists, from Muslim terrorists, Islamists, Muslimist fundamentalists than any Jewish, attack, any Jewish war, any war, that a Western democracy was involved in. More Muslim on Muslim deaths from Muslim leaders, Muslim countries, Muslim extremists, Muslim terrorists upon other Muslims. Nobody protests, like he was saying. Where's the protests about all the Muslims killed in Syria? Where were all the protests of all the Muslims coming out marching in the streets when Saddam Hussein gassed the Kurds? Where were the Muslims? Where's the Muslim outrage, the protests of the 1 to 2, maybe 3 million Muslims in concentration camps in China? You know why, folks? You know what's missing there? Israel. No Jewish people involved. That's why nothing ever happens. That's why they don't protest. But you get something happening with Israel involved inside there. Oh, the marches, they start immediately. Driven by a lot of Muslims. And then the liberals and leftists and the progressives and all everybody else comes out to join in, to be part of the in crowd, be the anti-Semites for the day or the parade and join in. Anyways, folks, that's what we have on tap for you today. You're watching the Dr. Nasir Shaikh Show. I'm your host. My name is Dr. Nasir. Let's get back to more of Douglas Murray and his interview with the State of the Nation of Israel right now.
Extent Muslim anti-Semitism that will have come from other countries and, as you say, been imported into Western countries. What I find more difficult to understand is the way that the anti-Israel cause seems to have captured the imagination of so many white Britons, people from a Christian or atheist background, not from a Muslim background. Why does Israel seem to have this hold on the especially young imagination in the West. I mean, what is rotten with the youth that you end up with polls saying that in America, 50% of youth support Hamas? What does that say about the state of these societies and the broader issues that need to be addressed?
Well, one thing is, let me give you a stat that's a little connected to that. In New York State, which pays roughly the most of any state, I think, in the union in terms of school fees, it's about, what's only during the COVID period, it's about $30,000 a year per pupil for state schooling. That's a lot of money. You should be able to do quite a lot with that. In New York State, the K through 12, the children who come out with a basic standard of literacy is 50%.
Basic literacy, 50%.
Basic literacy, K through 12. Basic numeracy, I think, is 52%. So these figures might all be related. We're talking about people who can't read and can't add up. You could diddle them out of their change at the cash till and they wouldn't know. So I wouldn't go to those people for solving one of the most intractable problems in global affairs. But it might be connected. It might be connected. If you are so incapable of basic attainment in education, you are this ignorant, maybe you are particularly vulnerable to people who come along and say, there's this problem, and if we shout boring slogans often enough and we shout at people in the street and we do this, we could solve this problem. Why don't you join? I'm saying it's a demonstration of educational failure of an astonishing kind and a moral failure at the heart of America and of Britain, that there have not been enough adults who have corrected them and in fact just informed them. I mean, there's one other point I must make on this. Don't forget that all of our lives, you're a bit younger than me, but all of our lives, every politician in the West from both political sides said the same thing. They said that the solution to all of the Middle East's problems was the creation of a Palestinian state. They said that. Didn't matter if it was David Cameron or Ed Miliband.
It's the foreign policy orthodoxy that astonishingly hasn't shifted with the October 7th massacre.
It hasn't shifted. Amazingly enough, these people are still saying this. And it should by now be demonstrable, not just the Palestinians were already given a state in 2005 and created a terrorist state.
In Gaza, of course.
In Gaza. So, I mean, don't see why they should be given another go, and another go, and another go. Particularly not after October 7th. I don't see why you should reward the terrorism of that day by doubling down on the two-state solution. But when you look at that analysis that we were told all the time growing up, the orthodoxy, if the Palestinians can only get a state and live happily side by side by the Israelis, you know, the economy of Yemen will blossom, the Ayatollahs in Iran will realize that women aren't dirt, and so on. No, of course not. It doesn't have any impact on any of the problems of the region. You think that North Africa is going to get sorted out or anything just because there's another failed Arab state? Of course not. But that has dissolved in front of our eyes. It has been as proven to be wrong as anything can be proven to be wrong in international relations. And yet they still say it.
They still say it and
Well, folks, that's what happens when you keep repeating the same mantra over and 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 over again. After a while, those people that are kind of, they don't have a clue. They get their news from TikTok. They get their news from Facebook. They get their news, from other forms of social media. And they're just completely addled. They're dolts, they're idiots, they're morons. Very little education. And the ones that do have education, well, they just want to go with the flow. They just want to be part of the in crowd. They don't want to be on the outside looking in. No, they want to be able to go to the dinner parties, the cocktail parties. They want to be able to hobnob with everybody else. So, of course, they take the side of the Hamas terrorists, because what would be the thing if you took the other side? Oh, you're not going to be invited to a party. And those on the educational scale at the very bottom, Of course, it can be manipulated if you say the same things, and especially if a leader is saying it, two-state solution all the time, keep rewarding terrorists, keep rewarding, bad behavior. Of course, that's going to happen. And it's just a shame, but the educational system has completely let down its students, and especially those from marginalized groups. Forget about what it's done okay with the white population. If the white population is suffering that bad, can you imagine what's happening? We all know the statistics. Let's just point them out. They're even worse than that, folks. They're worse than that in some areas. And these are basically Democrat or liberal controlled educational institutions. I mean, it's just absolutely, absolutely crazy the amount of money that is spent per child in the United States of America by the educational department. Those are our taxes, our tax dollars going to waste. You could spend hours on a YouTube video just talking about the mess of public education. But as far as the reason why you have so many whites and Christians and atheists and agnostics and I would say probably other marginalized, groups, other minority groups that are pulled in to the, to basically be dazzled, you know, by their concern for what's happening to Hamas and have nothing at all, very little or just absolute, hatred for the Israeli side and not even looking at the picture from both sides or at least coming to the picture with nothing, with just basically saying, okay, give me all the facts, whatever your side and what your facts you think from your side. Let me make an informed decision. No, they're not. They go directly, majority, especially young people. Again, the same thing, beyond the end, right? Same thing that's happened with the Church of Climatology, right? You don't want to be protesting. You don't want to be not going to a protest, I mean, that's just stop oil or get rid of fossil fuels. Heck no, you want to go with your friends and be part of the in crowd at that point in time. You don't want to go against the grain. Anyways, folks, we appreciate you taking the time to watch. You've been watching the Dr. Nasir Sheikh Show. I've been your host. My name is Dr. Nasir. If you haven't done so already, we'd love for you to subscribe to the channel, like, share, and follow. So you all know what to do. Take a look at our video links above and below. Put your comments down, share. I'll leave with my final thought as always, which is when you're right, and when you're left, you're just wrong. Until next time, folks, take care and stay safe.